Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier sessions related to capital budgeting, we discussed about building up of cash flows or estimation of cash flows or computation of cash flows. Also, we discussed about a couple of techniques of capital budgeting, namely net present value technique, NPV, and profitability index, also called as desirability factor. And we should know the decision making criteria for any technique that we learn. For NPV, decision making criteria is that the project should be accepted when NPV is positive and it should be rejected when NPV is negative. Same way for profitability index, the project should be accepted when the profitability index is greater than 1 and it should be rejected if it is less than 1. And computations are to be done. In case of NPV, it is the present value of cash inflows minus present value of cash outflows. Whereas in case of profitability index, that minus changes to divided by. So which can be calculated like present value of cash inflows divided by present value of cash outflows. These are the two techniques in capital budgeting we discussed in the earlier sessions. Now let us continue this discussion with one more very important technique, that is internal rate of return, IRR. First of all, NPV is different, IRR is different. In case of NPV, what we are calculating is the net present value, which is an absolute amount. This is an amount that was being calculated. And most importantly, for this computation to be done, a lot of inputs are required. Majorly, the inputs are definitely cash flows, then time period of the project, and also a very important aspect is the discount factor or discount rate. So while calculating NPV, we know the discount rate already. And generally, what is the discount rate? That also we discussed earlier. Generally, it will be taken as weighted average cost of capital or overall cost of capital or plus something, whatever the management desires. So it can be called as required rate of return or desired rate of return also. Whatever it is, there is a discount rate already known to us while calculating NPV. And using the information available, we calculate the net present value amount. That is the way the NPV is computed. But as far as IRR is concerned, IRR is not an amount. That itself is the rate. That is internal rate of return. So the name itself indicates it is the rate. So what is this rate? It is the discount rate at which NPV is 0. That is a simple definition of IRR. In other words, it is that discount rate at which the present value of cash inflows is equal to present value of cash outflows. Both are same. That is when NPV becomes 0. It is that discount rate. So that rate we have to calculate. So when rate is known, we can compute NPV. Now NPV is known. What is NPV? 0. Now we need to find out rate, backward calculation. For understanding purposes, normally what is NPV? Just for depiction, though we don't do like this. Presentation is different, but essence is same. Cash flow of year 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power of 1 is there, which is not required. Plus cash flows of year 2 divided by 1 plus R square, plus cash flows of year 3 divided by 1 plus R to the power of 3, so on. Cash flows of year n divided by 1 plus R to the power of n. Okay, this is the present value of all the cash inflows. From this, you have to deduct initial cash outlay, that is initial investment. Then what you get is called as NPV. We know this. Now, left hand side of the equation is 0. Cash flows definitely known. Initial cash flows known. We have to find out R. Can we do that mathematically? Practically, not possible. At least with definitely normal calculators that we use, it is not possible. And we cannot use scientific calculators, so there is no way that we can calculate IRR directly like that. So what is the solution for it? Solution for that is trial and error method. Trial and error method is that wherein we have to find out two NPVs, not just one NPV. Of course, both of them will not be 0. If we already found out incidentally where NPV is 0, we have error already. It is that discount rate at which NPV is 0. But when you calculate NPVs, you will take some random discount rate. So let us say there is some discount rate at which NPV 1 is there, that is, let us call that as R1, and let us say there is R2 at which NPV 2 emerges. So how do we get this R1, R2? It will not be given in the question. We have to take on trial and error basis. Then naturally doubt comes. If that much of choice is given to us, what should we take? Should I take 12%, 14%, 15%, 10%, 8%? Anything can come in mind, right? What should we take? You don't have to break your heads for that. I would suggest take any rate. Ultimately, answer will be correct. At least approximately correct. But still, we can have some common sense applied in the examination conditions. Because in the examinations, usually the present value interest rate factors are given within the question, PVIFs, at different rates. Let us say PVIFs are given at 3 different rates. Take the middle one. And then you can either increase or decrease according to the requirement. So when we say there is a NPV 1 which is calculated at R1 and NPV 2 which is calculated at R2, any two rates can be taken. There is no problem in that. But of course, there is a better way or better thing actually can be when there is a positive NPV in one of these things and a negative NPV in another thing. So whatever the rate that we choose, let us say, for example, just for example, say you have taken 10% as the discount rate and NPV is negative there. NPV is negative. But what we want is NPV 0. So 0 will be naturally somewhere between positive and negative, isn't it? Now, in order to come somewhere, reach to this 0, this NPV has to be increased. How can NPV be increased? Only when you reduce the rate. Because where is the R in the formula here? It is in the denominator. And when you have something, the main value calculation, to be increased, what you should do? You should decrease the denominator. So you should reduce the rate from 10% to something else, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Now main point here is, now this is 10% R2 or R1. This is R2. So R2 is the higher rate. R1 is the lower rate. Okay. Ideally, at R2, the NPV should be negative. Again, ideally, not necessarily. If it is negative, since we want to increase NPV, we want to make it positive. We have to reduce the discount rate. Let us say, just for example, R2 is already 10%, and whatever the negative NPV you calculated is NPV 2. Since you reduced the rate and recalculated again NPV at that rate, say 8% is the rate you have chosen. This is R1 at which there is NPV preferably positive. Again I am repeating, not necessarily, preferably. So we have two NPVs, one is a positive NPV and one is a negative NPV, and ideally NPV 1 is positive and NPV 2 is negative. Let us say another situation. You have taken 10%, already it became positive. It was already positive. Then what you have to do? Then you have to reduce that NPV. That means already it is higher. When you want to reduce the NPV, naturally you have to increase the rate. In that case, that 10% will be R1 and whatever the increased rate will become R2. So which is R1, which is R2? Again, simple to remember. Lower rate is R1, higher rate is R2. At a lower rate, whatever is calculated, we can call that as NPV1, and at higher rate, whatever is calculated as NPV2. Preferably, this NPV1 should be positive, NPV2 should be negative. Preferably. If it is so, definitely NPV0 will be there somewhere in between these two rates. It is not 8% also, it is not 10% also, somewhere in between. I don't say 9%, not necessarily like that. But definitely some rate at which NPV will become 0. How to find that rate is the question. That can be found out by using a technique called as interpolation. We use that again even in payback period and discounted payback period later. Technique is same, that can be used at many places, statistical techniques. But here we are applying it. Whenever there are things which we want somewhere between two items, that this technique of interpolation can be used. But we will restrict our discussion to how this technique of interpolation can be used for IRR. So we have some R1 and we have some R2. Definitely our IRR is somewhere between these two. It is not as lower as R1 and it is not as higher as R2. Somewhere between these two there is IRR. How to find that IRR is the question. This is the formula you should definitely remember. Of course, IRR is going to be higher than R1 for sure. So R1 plus. NPV1 is the amount which is supposed to be becoming 0 because it's already positive. That is supposed to be becoming 0. So that is the amount to be covered. But what is the spread between these two NPVs? That is NPV1 minus NPV2 multiplied with R2 minus R1. So whatever two rates you take, R1 lower rate, R2 higher rate, you can apply this formula. Of course, at R1, whatever the NPV you calculated is NPV1. At R2, whatever you calculated is called NPV2. So any rates, two different rates if you take, any means any, your answer will be almost correct. But when it will be more correct, when it will be more closer to the accurate answer, of course there is nothing called exactly 100% accurate answer for IRR, but still what will be closer to the answer generally? For that we have to follow basically two types of principles. First thing is the spread between R2 minus R1 should be lesser as minimum as possible. So don't be over smart and say that okay, R1 I have taken 10%, next I will take directly 20% and calculate NPV. Again I'm telling answer will come, it will be closer but not that accurate. So if the spread between R2 and R1 is lesser, answer is more accurate. That is first precaution we have to take. And again, ideally, not necessarily, ideally make sure that NPV1 is positive and NPV2 is negative. So if you have chosen some discount rate, already if NPV is negative, then that is R2, whatever the discount rate you have chosen. But if you have chosen some discount rate where NPV what you calculated at that discount rate it is positive, that means it is R1. you still have to increase the discount rate to find out NPV2. Ideally, which should be negative. So if these two precautions are taken, the IRR will be more accurate. But again, I'm repeating, not necessarily. If we can take, it is good, ideal. So we don't have to really have creativity here. Usually when in the examinations, different discount rates are given and different PVIFs are given. Take any one of them and start first computing NPV without wasting time. Which one to take as R1 or whatever the rate it is. Take some rate which is given in the question, where the PVIFs are given in the table, and start calculating NPV. By chance, if it is positive, increase the rate and recalculate NPV. Increase the rate how much? Use whatever is given in the question only. If the difference is like only 1%, may take another rate 2%. Let us say if sometimes in exam questions 12%, 13%, 14%, 15%, like this, a table of PVIFs is given. As an example, I'm telling. If you take directly 12% and 15%, also you'll get the answer, no problem. Still, that's not a problem. But you can choose something in between, right? Okay, let us say start with 13%. If NPV is positive, then again recalculate at 15% NPV. Then if that is negative, you got the result. But don't waste time again recalculating if it is not negative. It is only a preferable outcome, not any compulsion. Any two rates, any two NPVs, you can find out IRR. Remember that. However, because we want more marks, because we definitely want to have our answer matching to the answer to the question, these two precautions can be taken. What are the two precautions? One is to have as minimum spread between the rates as possible, not more than 2%, 3%. Then second precaution is making sure NPV1 is positive and NPV2 is negative. If we can make sure these two things, IRR can be more accurate, but still there is nothing called 100% accurate IRR. Even computers give wrong IRRs also, by the way. So whenever you have an answer finally for IRR, don't forget to write in the bracket approximately. That will save you from anything. That does not mean it can deviate by too many percentages. No, decimals is okay. Somebody got, let us say, 12.22% IRR. Somebody got 12.18%, no problem. Somebody got 12.25%, no problem. But somebody got 9.2, no, that is absolutely wrong calculation. That much difference will not be there. So in decimals, if there is any small difference, don't you worry about it. Don't waste time on that. As simple as it. So that is the way of calculating IRR. And simple point to remember here is, to calculate IRR, definitely we have to calculate NPV. That's it. So that is the point to be noted. At any particular percentage, if you can find out NPV, that will be first starting point. Then according to that NPV, whether it is positive or negative, you either increase the rate and recalculate it NPV, or decrease the rate and recalculate NPV according to the situation, according to the outcome of the first calculation. So that is IRR in a nutshell. And let us solve some of the questions for understanding purposes. Of course, NPV, we know when the cash flows are uniform, PVIF A can be taken instead of PVIFs. So let us look at this illustration 6. A Limited is evaluating a project involving an outlay of 10 lakhs rupees, resulting in an annual cash inflow of 2,50,000 for 6 years. Assuming salvage value of the project is 0, determine IRR of the project. Directly, IRR of the project is asked. 6 years. So again, where to start, how to start? There can be an approximation also, or there can be something that you can straight away calculate also. So just like that, let us say at 12%, some number we are taking. Let us calculate NPV. So this is some rate, R1 or R2, we don't know yet. It is some rate, we have taken randomly 12%. There are ways of finding it out, payback period, payback reciprocal, etc. Going to the tables and all. These all things are very easier said than done, because these tables will not be given to you in the exam. What do you do? You cannot refer to the table. Here simply they will say refer to table. In institute material there are tables. Institute material tables are there. But in exam they will not be given, right? So you cannot do all these exotic things. Simple thing is to have some number in mind. 10%, 12%, anything is okay. That's not a problem. Let us take 12% and find out what is the PVIFA for 12%, and we need time period also, that is 6 years. So 12% 6 years, we need PVIFA. Usually it will be given in the question, don't worry about it. But we can calculate also. That is not a big deal. So how to calculate that? 1 divided by 1.12, 12%, right? That is PVIF for the first year. Then that divided by 1.12. Then same thing can be done for more years. So 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. Okay, enough. That's what we want. 6 years only we want. Anyway, the total of all this is going to be the PVIFA. So if you take a total of this, that is how much? 4.1114. Okay, 4.1114 is the total of all this. So that can be taken directly as PVIFA. For 12%, 6 years. First, let us find out NPV at that rate. We don't know whether it is NPV1 or NPV2. We don't know whether 12% is R1 or R2. We don't know anything of that. But at some rate, we calculated NPV. At 12%, what will be NPV? Naturally, present value of cash inflows. Cash inflows are told as what? 2,50,000 each year. Like that, 6 years. So the 6 years PVIFA is 4.1114. So that multiplication is the present value of total all cash inflows minus present value of cash outflows, which is 10 lakhs. So what is NPV here? Let us check that. 2,50,000 multiplied with 4.1114 minus 10 lakhs. 27,850 is the NPV, which is positive. See, when NPV is positive, this is NPV1, right? And this is R1. Simple. Now what we need to do? We need to increase the rate to some other rate, R2, and we have to calculate NPV2 so that we know how to calculate IRR using the formula. So R2 has to be definitely higher than R1, wherein preferably NPV should be negative. So 13% can be taken, 14% also can be taken, 15% also can be taken, anything can be taken. So since we have decided to have only 2% gap at the maximum, let us take 14% rate. So at this 14% rate, again you have to recalculate PVIFA. So what is the PVIFA at 14% rate? That has to be recalculated. Let us take that. One divided by 1.14, that divided by 1.14, again that divided by 1.14, that divided by 1.14, like that. So what is going to be the PVIFA, present value annuity factor, for 14%, 6 years? 3.8887. 3.8887 is the PVIFA. 3.8887. Okay, now since we have PVIFA, we can easily find out NPV2. Same way, 2,50,000 is the cash flow. 3.8887 is the PVIFA minus 10 lakhs. How much will that be? Let us check it. 2,50,000 multiplied with 3.8887 is around 972,175. Minus 10 lakhs gives you negative 27,825. So negative amount. So we have NPV1, NPV2, R1, R2. NPV1 is positive, NPV2 is negative. And we have the formula. Formula is very important to be remembered. IRR formula is R1 plus NPV1 divided by NPV1 minus NPV2 multiplied with R2 minus R1. R1 we took as 12%. 12, that is NPV1 27,850 positive divided by again NPV1 27,850 positive. Be careful here, minus of minus, NPV2 was negative, so minus of minus will become plus 27,825 multiplied with R2 minus R1, 14 minus 2, 14 minus 12, that is 2. That's all. Do the math. 27,850 plus 27,825, 55, 675 is the denominator. So 27,850 divided by 55, 875. 55, 675. Okay, put it on paper. That is always better so that you don't forget it. So 27,850 divided by 55675 multiplied with 2. Now we can do it on the calculator directly. 27,850 divided by 55675 multiply with 2 plus 12, that gives you 13%. Incidentally, it is almost exactly 13%, 13.000, which is 13%. So at 13%, the NPV will be 0 approximately. Let us check that also. Just for understanding. Let us say here we have changed all the PVIFs, and PVIFA at 13% is going to be 3.9975. 3.9975. So when it is 3.9975, NPV will be approximately how much? 2,50,000 into 3.9975 minus 10 lakhs. That is around 625 rupees. That will be just because of the rounding error. Otherwise, it will be more or less same. So around 13%, because 13% is also not actually correct IRR, right? It's 13.0004 something. We don't need that much, that many decimals. 2 decimals are enough for IRR. 13.00 is 13. So at 13%, approximately the NPV is 0. That is IRR. So simply in this case, we can come to know that approximately the IRR is 13%. That's it. 12.978, whatever. So that is a way of calculating IRR. We don't need any multiple different ways of doing it, steps of doing it. You can simply follow one method. That is enough. Ultimately, answer should be correct. So follow this method. Remember this very carefully, and also remember the formula very carefully. All that you need to do is simply you need to fix some rate in mind, calculate NPV at that rate, see what is the NPV, if it is already positive or negative. If it is already negative, then this is R2, and what you calculated is NPV2. But if it is already positive, that is NPV1. and this is R1. Then you have to increase the rate to R2, calculate NPV2. That's all. Then substitute in the formula. When you have these two things, the formula for IRR is having only these two things. What is the formula? R1 plus NPV1 divided by NPV1 minus NPV2 multiplied with R2 minus R1. But care should be taken, NPV2 if it is negative, minus of minus becomes plus. That is where sometimes students do mistake calculation wise. So NPV2 if it is negative, make sure NPV1 minus NPV2 means minus of minus is plus in the denominator. That's all. If this care is taken, simply we can calculate IRR for any type of project. So IRR calculation is not actually new. It is NPV calculation only. And if you know NPV calculation, you can already also know IRR calculation, because IRR calculation includes NPV calculation. NPV calculation will not include IRR calculation. That's a different story. Now let us solve some of the questions quickly. Illustration number 7. Calculate IRR for an investment of 1,36,000 which yields the following cash flows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 years cash inflows are given. They are not uniform. See, when they are not uniform, can we use all the PVIFs and all? No, we cannot. We have to definitely use the normal PVIFs. And we have to calculate IRR. We don't know what is the discount rate of this company, what is the weighted average cost of capital of the company. We have to take some random rate. Any rate can be taken, I told you. So this is the data that is available with us. As usual, you need to find out NPV. So when you have to find out NPV, you need the same type of format here, then cash flows, then PVIF, then discounted cash flows. So here how many years we have? 5 years. 1, 2, 3, of course 0 also will be there. That is the initial cash outlay. So 0 also is there. 4, 5. Cash flows as given in the question, I have to copy. 0 here, 1 minus 1,36,000. That is minus 1,36,000 because it is outflow. Here 1, 30, then 40, then 60. Take them. $30,000, 40,000, 60,000, 30, 40, 60, 30, 20. These are the cash flows, right? Now, PVIF, how much we don't know, because what is the discount rate we don't know. That's what we are finding out. IRR is that discount rate at which NPV is 0. That is why we have to do trial and error. Any rate can be taken, as I told already. Any random rate can be taken. Don't worry, don't break your heads about that. Take 10%, 12%, whatever you want to take. Okay, let us take 12% only. What is there? So write in the bracket clearly 12%. 12%. Okay, it's not accepting. It's okay. It is taking as a calculation. Fine, no problem. So 12% is the rate at which we have to find out PVIFs. So naturally for 0th year it will be 1. Then I think we had 12% rates already. No, we had 13% rates. No problem. We can calculate again. PVIF. What is the PVIF calculation? 1 divided by 1.12. That divided by 1.12, then that divided by 1.12, that divided by 1.12, that divided by 1.12. So these are the PVIFs. Tables also available. Generally, it will be given in the question, but make sure you calculate these things quickly so that it will be useful for you for practice. So these are the PVIFs at 12%. We cannot use PVIF A because cash flows are not uniform, but we have to just use the NPV technique, multiplying the cash flows with the PVIFs. So first one will be naturally as it is. Then next, multiply. You have to do all this, right? And then total all of this. So NPV at 12%, what we found out is negative. And negative NPV is NPV1 or NPV2 preferably for us. It is NPV2. That means we already have NPV2 and we already have R2. So if you want to make it positive, means you have to increase the NPV. What you should do? You should reduce the discount rate and recalculate the PVIFs and recalculate the discounted cash flows also. So let us take the same calculations. You have to do that separately. So for 0th year is okay, no problem. Now we have to reduce the rate. So how much will take? Anything you can take, but don't take 5% and all. That much difference we should not be taking. So let us take 10% and see. So 10% rate if you take, what are going to be the PVIFs? We have to recalculate them since they are not given in the question. So instead of 1.12, it is just 1.1. Same with next one also. That divided by 1.1. 1.10 is nothing but 1.1. So recalculate them. 0.909, 0.826, 751, 683 and 621 are the PVIFs. Of course, going forward, we don't have to waste time in all these things. We can refer to tables directly, but you should know how to calculate them is the point. Worst case scenario, if they are not given in the examination, you cannot say, they are not given, I could not solve this question. That is why, at least for a few questions initially, you practice how to calculate PVIFs. So that is important for safety purposes. Now that we have PVIFs, different PVIFs at 10%, again we have to calculate the discounted cash flows, which is again nothing but cash flows multiplied with the PVIFs. So naturally the first one will be same because it is same amount as it is. But after that they will change. So whatever the cash flows are there, now multiply with the new PVIFs and do the same thing for others also, for all the 5 years. You don't need decimals, don't need to worry about it. Just write whole numbers. Don't worry about paise. That is not required. Don't waste time on that. Unnecessary, that is. Now, if you recalculate the NPV at 10% by adding up all the discounted cash flows, it is coming to 2318 positive. So we have got NPV1. Simple. NPV1 is there, NPV2 is there, R1 is there, R2 is there. That's all. All that you need to do is substitute in the formula and get the answer. So what is going to be the substitution here? For IRR, R1 is now 10%. R2 is 12%. Always remember R1 is lower rate, R2 is higher rate. So IRR is going to be somewhere definitely more than 10% for sure. So R1 is 10%. So 10 plus NPV1 2318 divided by 2318 NPV1 minus of minus again becomes plus 4206 NPV2, that is difference between these two 12 and 10 difference is 2, R2 minus R1. That's all. Do the calculation. 2318 plus 4206 denominator is 6524. So 2318 divided by that 6524 multiplied with 2 plus 10, you got 10.711. If at all you want to have 3 decimals, but 2 decimals is enough. 10.71%. What is this? That is IRR. So for this project, if at all the cash flows are discounted exactly at 10.71%, NPV will be 0. If the cash flows are discounted at 10%, NPV is positive. If the cash flows are discounted at 12%, NPV is negative. Since IRR is that discount rate at which NPV is 0, that's what we calculated. 10.71% is the IRR, approximately. Always that has to be looked at. So approximately here also 10.7, same thing. So 10.71% is the answer we can say for that particular question. That's all. That is how IRR has to be calculated. Now, let us look at illustration 8. A company proposes to install machine involving a capital cost of 3,60,000. Life of the machine is 5 years. Salvage value at the end of the life is nil. Machine will produce a net operating income after depreciation of 68,000 rupees per annum. So this is where the reading is important. Net operating income after depreciation of 68,000 rupees. Means the 68,000 is the net operating income which is after depreciation. Some people will read like what? Net operating income after depreciation of 68,000 per annum. After depreciation of 68,000 per annum, what is the net operating income? That is not given. So this 68,000 is not depreciation. It is not depreciation of 68,000. If you just look at this, depreciation of 68,000, it looks like wrong way of reading the question. It is net operating income after the depreciation. Whatever the depreciation may be, straight line method we can calculate that. After that depreciation, this is the net operating income, which is 68,000 rupees per annum. Tax rate is 45%. Then net present value factors, cumulative factors are given. Means cumulative means what? Automatically you should understand we have PVIFs. And why they are relevant here? Because the annual cash flows are going to be uniform. Certainly they are going to be uniform. There is no different years and different cash flows. Each year they are going to be same. So first thing first, we have to find out the cash flows. How much are going to be the cash flows, that we have to first find out. What is given there in the question? Net operating income after depreciation. Means profit after depreciation is given, but before tax, naturally. If it is given means after depreciation only. That is not after tax. It is only after depreciation. That is how much? 68,000. That is profit before tax also you can call it. Right? From that deduct tax. That is how much? 45%. So tax at the rate of 45%, 68,000 multiplied with 45%, it is going to be 30,600. So what is going to be the profit after tax? 37,400. That is profit after tax. But is that the cash flow? No, it is not. We know to get cash flow, we need to add back depreciation to the profit after tax. So depreciation has to be added back. How much is that? That we have to calculate. How much will that be? 3,60,000 is the initial investment. 5 years is the life. Salvage value is nil. If salvage value was there, we would have deducted that. But 3,60,000 simply divided by 5. 72,000 is the depreciation each year. So 72,000 depreciation. Add that back. So how much is going to be the annual cash flow? Inflow, of course. 37,400 plus 72,000. 1,09,400. This is going to be the annual cash flow, 1,09,400. What we need is IRR. So we don't know the rate. Naturally, we have to pick a rate from whatever are given. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 5 different rates are given. So as I told, we don't have to waste time in which one to choose, That decision can be taken. Let us take somewhere in the middle. Directly, let us take 16%. So at a 16%, what is going to be IRR? At a discount rate of 16%, sorry, what is going to be NPV? At a discount rate of 16%. That can be found out because the cumulative factor or PVIFA is given 3.27. So all that we need to do is 1,09,400. This is NPV. That is equal to 1,09,400, which is the cash flow, multiplied with 3.27. That gives present value of cash inflows minus of initial investment 3,60,000. So how much is NPV at that rate? 1,09,400 multiplied with 3.27 minus 3,60,000 means negative 2262 is coming. That is NPV. When it is negative, we know it is NPV2. It is NPV2. And R2 is this 16%. So definitely we need R1. R1. It should be lesser than 16% or more than this 16%. Definitely it should be lesser than 16%. Then only the NPV can rise. NPV is already negative. You want to make it positive means you have to increase NPV. How can you increase NPV? By decreasing the rate. So we can take 15% also, 14% also. Instead of taking 15% and if that also comes negative, again time waste. Let us directly take 14%. R1, 14%. No problem. So what is NPV1 now? At R1. 1,09,400 cash flows is common. That is the same thing. Now the discount rate is different. PVIFA is different. 3.43 is the PVIFA. Minus 3,60,000 initial investment is same. So what is NPV1 now? Recalculate. 1,09,400 multiplied with 3.43 minus 3,60,000 means 15,242. Little high. That's okay. Just this can be again a proof that IRR will be more or less similar, more or less same, irrespective of whatever the rates we take. If you take 15% also, NPV would have been positive. That is indicated by the very higher NPV here. Doesn't matter. No need to waste time on all these things. Straight away, substitute in the formula and get the answer. R1 14% plus NPV1 15,242 divided by NPV1 15,242 minus of minus becomes a plus because here R2 was 16% and NPV2 was 2262. Multiplied with difference between them is 2%. So do this calculation. 15,242 divided by 15,242 plus 2262, 17,504 multiplied with 2. That's all. 15,242 divided by 17,504 multiplied with 2 plus 14. So around 15.74% it is coming. Around 15.74% it is coming. So it is definitely between 15 and 16. That's okay. It will be somewhere around that only. Even if you took 15 as R1 also, then it will be definitely more accurate, but still it will be around that only. 15.74 is what we got. Let us see what is the answer here. Same answer. What is the difference? Around 15.74. They took 15% and 16% rates. We took 16 and 14. Still we got same answer. So that is again a proof. One way we can say we don't have to really worry too much about the rates. But make sure difference between them is not like 5%, 4% and all. 2% is okay, acceptable. 1% is preferable but risky, involves cumbersome calculations. 2% is no problem, still we get the same answer. 15.74 is the IRR. And by the way, when there are NPVs, one is negative and one is positive, almost IRR will be more accurate. That is one more point to be noted. But is there any compulsion that both of them have to be, one of them has to be negative, another one has to be positive? There is no compulsion like that. If you look at this calculation, let us say somebody else. Let us just use this for understanding purposes. Same thing. Imagine instead of taking 14% from the question, some student just started with 14% only, then took 15%, let us say. Both will be positive NPVs. 14% positive NPV, we know already. 14% how much was the positive NPV? That was 15,242. This is a positive NPV at 14%. Just for understanding purposes, let us take 15% as R2, higher rate, and calculate NPV. You can directly do that. 1,09,400 multiplied with, what is the PVFA at 15%? 3.35. 3.35. Minus 360,000 original investment. 6490 is NPV. 6490. Both are positive. Is it going to have a very bad impact on IRR? Generally, no. That's the point again to be noted. So, one lower, one higher is enough. No problem. So, what is lower here? 14%. What is higher here? 15%. So, take the same formula. Take 14 plus NPV1, how much? NPV1, 15,242 divided by 15,242 minus 6490. Here minus only because there is no minus of minus. Both NPVs are positive. Then difference between these rates is only 1. Then let us see how much will be the IRR. 15,242 minus 6490, denominator is 8752. This is numerator 15,242. So 15,242 divided by 8752. Add 14 to that. 15.74. What happened? Nothing happened. Still the same answer. So that is only to prove that no need to really waste time on which rate to take, how much should I start with. That is the very useless and time waste thought. Take some rate, make sure whatever the NPV that comes, that logic you should have, whatever the NPV that comes, if it is negative, there is no problem. Straight away that is NPV2 and try to reduce the rate and make the NPV positive, which will be NPV1. But if the first calculation itself is positive, then you have to make it negative, means you have to increase the rate. So then first calculation will be NPV1 and rate will be R1. Increase the rate and R2 and find out NPV2. Even if it comes positive also, don't worry. Don't try to get the R2 negative, not necessary, as we have seen here. In this case, second calculation, NPV2 and NPV1 both were positive. So what happened? Nothing happened. Still the answer will be same. But main point is formula, definitely. Formula and core concept. Core concept is what? That is, two rates are there. Definitely R1 is a lower rate, whatever it is. At that there is some NPV called as NPV1. R2 is a higher rate, whatever it is. That NPV, whatever the amount that comes, is NPV2. These two things, if you can just know and substitute in the formula for IRR, taking any two rates, reasonable rates. Any two does not mean, once again, the spread should not be too heavy. With 1%, 2%. 1% is least spread. 2% also is okay. With that spread, you can find out these two different NPVs. So R1 plus NPV1 divided by whatever NPV1 is, maybe whatever NPV2 may be, that will be NPV1 minus NPV2. That is a formula. R2 minus R1. That is a formula. Only in case NPV2 is negative, this effectively becomes NPV1 plus that. But don't try to do that. Just remember this formula. Make it minus only. While doing calculations, minus of minus will become positive. So that should not be built into the formula. Formula is this: NPV1 minus NPV2 is there in the denominator. whichever it is, both positives no problem, both negatives no problem, one positive, one negative no problem, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And that is proven already. We have taken some rates and still final answer is going to be more or less same. That is the internal rate of return calculation. Don't worry about most of the other steps, etc. Simply follow this logic. You will be able to calculate IRR quickly. That is important. And what is the acceptance rule for this IRR technique is IRR, sometimes it is also called as rate of return naturally. And if this is crossing the hurdle rate means cutoff rate or weighted average cost of capital. If it is more than, if the internal rate of return generated by the project is more than the hurdle rate is also called cutoff rate. It can be weighted average cost of capital, or it can be required rate of return, desired rate of return, whatever it is. So if IRR is crossing that hurdle, then accept the proposal. If IRR is not crossing that hurdle, if IRR is less than the required rate of return, reject that proposal. Simple logic. If let us say one project has a IRR of, in this case, what we got, around 15.74%. But let us say the policy of the management is they will accept the projects only which will give a return of 16%. This project is not giving, so they will reject this project. It's a very simple accept reject criteria. That percentage 16%, who knows? That management knows. And we already discussed how do they know. With experience, with various factors into consideration. Risk factors also will have to be taken into consideration. You will not accept the same percentage of return for a project in India and for a project in Zimbabwe or Afghanistan or Australia or America. All countries will not give same types of return, same types of risk is not carried. Where the risk is high, and naturally the expectation will be high. So the required return or hurdle rate also will be high. So the hurdle rate is definitely the management's decision. At least bare minimum hurdle rate is what? Weighted average cost of capital. That is minimum. So not necessarily always hurdle rate is weighted average cost of capital. Bare minimum hurdle rate is definitely that weighted average cost of capital. If IRR is crossing that, good, accept the proposal. If IRR is not crossing that, reject the proposal, as simple as that. That is the acceptance criteria for IRR as a technique. So that is a very, very important technique to be known, remembered. The formula should be remembered, and of course the problems have to be practiced also related to IRR. Now, sometimes if the projects are like mutually exclusive, then one project is accepted automatically means the rejection of the other project. Let us say there are two different projects here. One is project L and another one is project S, let us say. So project L is having a NPV profile like this. So NPV is going to be like this at different rates, discount rates. Of course, at 0, it will be highest. But anyway, 0 will not be there. That is IRR, we can say. So NPV 0, this is the rate 0. And what is going to be the rate at which NPV is becoming 0? That is IRR. So look at for this project L, 12% approximately, 12% is IRR. For project S, 14% is IRR. Why is that? Because that is the rate at which NPV is 0. So IRR for project L is 12%. IRR for project S is 14%. So if you say S is better than L, straight away we cannot say that. That depends upon the situations also. So if at all, when the project S is better than L, yes, project S has crossed, it is above L only when after the crossover rate of 7% has happened. Means if the company's cost of capital is 7% or less than 7%, let us call less than 7%, L is better than S, because L line is above S line. When if the company's cost of capital is less than 7%. At 7%, the company is indifferent between any of these two projects. If the company's cost of capital is exactly 7%, let us say, then the company is indifferent between these two projects. any of them is okay for the company. However, if the company's cost of capital is more than 7%, automatically S is better than L. That can be even known by looking at IRR also, because IRR for internal rate of return that is generated by project S is more than that is generated by project L. So up to 7% cost of capital, L is better than S. At 7%, both are okay. Anything is okay. More than 7% cost of capital, project S is better than project L. Like this, NPV profiles can be used also for taking decisions, particularly for mutually exclusive projects. Two projects, if you plot on a graph, this NPV profile can be done. Are we going to do that in the exams and all? Definitely not. Only for understanding how NPV and IRR can be used at one stage. In one shot, we can use both of the techniques for selection criteria. Selection depends upon actual cost of capital and actual rate of return required by the company. That is something which is in reality to be noted, not for us to decide. That's it. That is the issue here. And of course, there are some limitations of IRR also. IRR limitations are there. Let us look at this type of projects. Two projects are there. Let us say project A and project B. Project A is having 1 lakh rupees outlay, B is having 5 lakhs rupees outlay. There is only 1 year for simplicity purposes, and the IRR here could be 50%. But for project B, IRR is 25% only. Whereas NPV for project A is 36,360 rupees. NPV for project B is 68,180 rupees. Now what is happening? There is a conflict between NPV and IRR. If you observe NPV, project B is better than project A. NPV is an absolute amount, 68,180 rupees NPV it is generating. But is it generating higher IRR? No, it is generating only 25% IRR. Whereas project A is generating 50% IRR. So if you look at IRR, A looks better. If you look at NPV, B looks better. So which has to be chosen? That is a problem. Always created with IRR and NPV having a conflict. Of course, solution has to be there, even in exams also. If at all there is a conflict between NPV and IRR, always we should go with NPV. NPV is the hero. NPV is the king. Always. Why is that? We know that. Ultimately, the wealth of the shareholders has to be increased. These percentages and all that are okay, good to see them. But absolute money amount that is going to be added to the wealth of the shareholders is what we have to look at. Provided capital is there, then only we are talking about all this. If capital is not there, there is no point of investment decision making at all. So here, just for observation purposes, project A is a low budget type of movie which gives more return percentage wise, but absolute return will be less. Whereas project B is a kind of high budget movie, something like Bahubali. Percentage wise it may give less return, IRR, but still absolute return is high. So possibilities of having absolute high returns cannot be overlooked, cannot be completely cancelled when capital is available. So if capital is available, again the essence of all this discussion is same. Always go for Bahubali. Don't settle for smaller budget things. So that more wealth is added. That is the point here. So for a simple understanding purposes, let us say somebody made a movie within a cost of, just for example, 15 crores. And let us say they got a overall profit on that of 5 crores. Good. 5 on 15 crores. So they got around 1/3 profit, say 33.33% profit rate is there. This is profit directly, this is cost. So whatever their investment is, on that return is this much. So return on investment is more or less conceptually similar to IRR. That is 33.33%. But if you see the Bahubali type of movie, it's a big high budget movie. Let us say one movie is say uh, produced and completely released with say 500 crores of investment, and it made say 50 crores of return profit. Investment is 500 crores, but return is 50 crores. What is the return on investment? Only 10%. But whereas return on investment here is 33.33%. But if you look at absolute terms, this movie made 50 crores, this movie made only 5 crores. So this is NPV, which suggests going for such kind of movies where absolute return is more. IRR is that which suggests percentage return is more. Of course, in real life, there are people who prefer this also, there are people who prefer this also. We cannot generalize everyone into the same category. But in exams, you cannot write. It depends on the real situations. All these vague statements you cannot give. So what we have to finally conclude? Some side we have to take. Again, in reality, both are valid. A lot of companies are there which prefer IRR as their decision criteria than NPV. There are companies which prefer NPV as their decision criteria instead of IRR. So we cannot be the judge of that in real life. That will be decided by the management mostly. They'll have their own logic on that. There are always people who will have this type of mentality also, this type of mentality also. Some people want percentage returns, some people want absolute returns. That's okay, fine. But in exams, what we should write? We should definitely take a side and we have to support NPV. That's all. No why and all. We know already both positives and negatives of NPV and IRR, but still we have to blindly go with NPV in examinations for various reasons. Because IRR has limitations more than NPV. And most important reason for NPV is that shareholders' wealth. It adds to the shareholders' wealth. Why we are having all this financial management, that, this, etc. The ultimate objective itself is shareholders' wealth enhancement. And NPV is contributing to that. That's what we want to achieve. NPV gives that. So simply speaking, when there is a conflict between NPV and IRR, don't try to have your fantastic arguments unless it is asked particularly. Simply go with NPV. NPV is the best technique out of all. That's it. That is when there is conflict. If there is no conflict, there is no problem. A lot of times there will not be conflict also. Don't think every time there will be conflict. Sometimes there will be conflict, sometimes no. That is one of the things here. Another problem is also there, where the type of cash flows with different timing of the cash flows might have impact on IRR as well. So if you want to calculate this, do this calculation for project A and project B. For practice, it is good. Project A and project B, example 9 in ICA material. Cash flows are given 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 years cash flows are given. So IRR has to be calculated. Simply that's the point. First of all, you do this calculation. For, of course, you need to calculate 4 NPVs here. For project A also you need NPV1, NPV2. Project B also you need to calculate NPV1, NPV2. Then substitute that in the formula for IRR and find out IRR for project A and also find out IRR for project B. That is your work. That is useful for you for practice. Don't ignore it. More you practice, better marks you get in examinations. If you think that it's okay, it can be calculated, I know how to calculate, everybody knows how to calculate. But everybody will not pass this paper. Why? Because of the difference between them, those who practice and those who don't practice. Knowing is not the point. Actually doing is the point. So do this IRR calculations for project A and project B. But here it is given already. Any type of calculations are given. So IRR for project A is 46%. IRR of project B is 35%. Okay. That calculation you do it separately. Now what happened? IRR of project A is more than IRR of project B. Why is that? Because project A has larger investment. And not only that, project A is having more cash flows in the beginning. The projects with more cash flows in the beginning will have more IRR, bigger IRR. So IRR will give different types of conflicting results, in the sense not really valid results all the time. There may be conflict of IRR with NPV for various reasons. One of the things that we have seen here is definitely in the first case also, example 8 also, here the project A is having more IRR, but project B is having more NPV. Whereas in this case, example 9, A is having more IRR than B, NPV is not calculated, no need also. NPV to be calculated, you need to definitely have some rate of return. That is given here. Let us say if at all 5% is the rate of return, that is discounted, then NPV will be how much? NPV of project A is 6,97,000, project B is 8,15,000 at this 5% rate, let us say, if that is the relevant discount factor. So what happened now? Project B is having more NPV, A is having more IRR, again conflict possible. So various possibilities are there, anomalous situations because of the limitations of IRR, this happens. So that is the reason whenever there is a conflict, we need to be favoring, we need to be definitely taking the side of NPV but not IRR. That is clearly to be remembered. Reason is there for it also. One of the things is assumptions under IRR is that reinvestment assumption. This is the core point. Why this is happening? Reinvestment means IRR assumes that the reinvestment is happening at IRR rate. So here 46% is IRR, let us say, in this case. The reinvestment of these cash flows means first year 7 lakhs rupees has come. Will that be there only? No. That 7 lakhs rupees will be reinvested, right? That money is reinvested. At what rate? At 46% rate. For how many years? 3 more years. Then 6 lakhs is reinvested at 46% for 2 more years. 4 lakhs is reinvested at 46% for 1 more year. This is not reinvested because it is coming at the end of the 4th year, that is end of the life of the project. So the reinvestment of the cash flows at IRR rate is a very, I would say, ridiculous assumption, because 46% return, it will not be possible to get in these situations. So that assumption is less possible, which is used by IRR. Here also 35% reinvestment rate is there on all these items which are accruing. So why this has happened? If you observe why IRR of project A is more than project B, because 7 lakhs is invested for more period of time, whereas 62,500 invested for the same period of time, which will give naturally lesser return. That means the IRR is only 35%. And here last one where there is no reinvestment is only 50,000. Here good cash flow has come, 6 lakhs rupees cash flow has come, but it is not reinvested. Assumption. Again, this is all assumption only. So the reinvestment assumption of IRR is ridiculous because it assumes that reinvestment of the cash flows is done at what rate? At that rate. That is IRR. Whereas NPV also assumes the same thing. That is a point of time value of money. However, NPV assumes that the reinvestment is done at the discount rate. And that discount rate is realistic because that is your rate of return that is required, or that is the weighted average cost of capital. That much return you will earn normally. So that is a more realistic assumption for NPV than IRR. That is one more reason why NPV is better than IRR. So the reinvestment assumption of IRR is less valid when compared with the reinvestment assumption of NPV. That is one point you can write about the differences between them. And we want to definitely we have to take the side of NPV. That is clear. Why we are taking the side of NPV? Of course, we have to praise NPV and scold IRR, whether we like it or not. And it's not true also. I told you, real life is completely different. So NPV, one definitely you should talk about the shareholders' wealth. IRR problems you should talk. What is one of the problems for IRR? reinvestment assumption of the IRR, wherein the IRR assumption is that the cash flows are reinvested at IRR rate, which is unrealistic assumption. Don't write ridiculous and all, which is not a realistic assumption or not a pragmatic assumption. Like that you can write. Good words. That is one of the issues. Another issue for IRR is there is a possibility of multiple IRRs. That is another big issue with IRR. Means, let us say for a particular project, the NPV can be 0. We want NPV to be 0. Yet one IRR, let us say some 18%, and NPV may be again 0 at some other ridiculously high IRR, something like 3648%. If you discount the same cash flows at these two percentages, example I'm telling, not exactly same numbers, still NPV could be 0. But can we say that going with the definition of IRR, this is the return that the project is generating, 3648%? Nonsense, not possible, impossible, and just ridiculous. But that ridiculous thing is going to happen with IRR. That is why IRR has more limitations. One is the reinvestment assumption at IRR rate is less realistic. Possibility of multiple IRRs is another limitation which IRR carries. These are the two negative points of IRR definitely. And one best point of NPV definitely is that, of course, reinvestment assumption of NPV is more realistic because reinvestment is happening at discount rate, at the required rate of return of the company. That's what is the rate at which it will be invested. That is natural, that is normal, nothing unrealistic there. But for IRR, it was unrealistic. On the other side, NPV mostly is the one, since it is an absolute amount, it adds to the wealth of the shareholders, which is the fundamental objective of financial management itself. So that is why certainly NPV is better than IRR. So that is the conclusion of two major techniques related to this chapter. Of course, there are other techniques also. Mostly the questions will be revolving around these two techniques. One is NPV, one is IRR. And as we already discussed, the limitations of IRR are these. Reinvestment assumption is something which is less realistic for IRR. Multiple IRRs are also possible. So IRR 1 can be as low as this and IRR 2 can be as low as this, and their NPV can be 0 at both discount rates, which is absolutely ridiculous, and that is not a practical thing also. These are the various aspects related to IRR. Of course, like any other method, it also has advantages. It considers time value of money, all cash flows are considered, it is easier to use because mostly the owners know the percentages. They don't talk about numbers otherwise. If you give some percentage, okay boss, this gives you 12% return, they will think about it, they'll say okay, yes. If you say it will give $1 million return, on what investment, that is not clear. So practically IRR is also very used a lot of times. And of course, maximization of shareholders' wealth is there. Even for IRR also it uses, it is useful. But more than this, NPV is giving an absolute number. IRR is only giving a percentage number. That is the point here. And limitations are many. First thing first, as you observed today already, this process is little tedious process, little complicated. Not that, but little bit process is involved here. Some peculiar situations like mutually exclusive projects and multiple IRRs, all these things are possible. Those we observed already. And also it ignores the firm's ability to reinvest at different rates. It's not possible for a firm to reinvest at IRR rate. That is a big unrealistic assumption. And a lot of times it is only giving a percentage return. It is not giving any absolute amount like NPV. So it is not really telling clearly how much shareholders' wealth is being added. So only if you take decisions based on IRR, they may not be correct. These are all various limitations of IRR, that is internal rate of return. Modified IRR and all these things are different. Those are separately discussed. We can discuss them later. But as of now, we should be able to calculate NPV and IRR for any data that is available So let us just quickly solve one of the illustrations. That is illustration number 11. ABC Limited is considering two projects X and Y for investment. Cash flows associated with these projects are given. Assuming cost of capital is 10%, identify which project should be accepted as per NPV method and as per IRR method. Of course, first of all, we have to calculate NPV. There is no option. NPV has to be calculated at what rate? At 10%. It has to be calculated. Let's just use this as a format. Cash flows, of course, will be different, years will be different, everything else will be different. So we are looking at project X first, then we'll go to Y. X, let us find out NPV as well as IRR. So at 10%, what is NPV? Let us find out. First, cash flows. How many years are there? Only 3 years are there. So I don't need these things. Only 3 years. Cash flows are minus 2,50,000, then 2 lakhs, then 1 lakh, then 50,000. PVIFs have to be definitely different. Okay, 10% we have to take here. First one is okay, that is only same amount. Here 1 divided by 1.1, that divided by 1.1, that divided by 1.1. So, these are the PVIFs. Multiply and total you will get NPV, which is positive NPV at 10% rate. In exam you use percentage sign. Here it is taking as calculation, so I am using text. 10% rate. At that rate, NPV is how much? 52,029 or 52,030, whatever. So that is NPV, positive NPV at 10% rate. Then we need IRR also for the same project, and we need preferably negative NPV. 52,000 is positive NPV. We have to reduce NPV, means you have to increase the rate. You can take any rate, by the way, 12%, 14%, 15%, anything can be taken, no problem. But to keep it less, to keep it more conservative, let us take it as 12% rate. Let us see what happens. Even if it is not negative, don't worry on that. I told you already. Let us just take 12% and see how the PVIFs will differ. Okay. So PVIFs will be recalculated. For year 0, it is 1, no difference. 12%, 1 divided by 1.12, that divided by 1.12, that divided by 1.12. Then you need to find out discounted cash flows. Cash flows multiplied with the PVIF. Total them. No need of any decimals. Then sum of that is 43,880. Very much positive. So this 12%, 13% is not going to give us any result. It is going to be definitely a very big percentage, something like 20 or maybe more than that. So as I told, don't worry about it. Just go with formula, simple. So what is NPV1 here? 52,029. NPV2 is 43,880. So R1 plus, so 10 is there, that is R1 plus NPV1, this is R1, NPV1 is known already, NPV2 at higher rate is this 43,880. Any two can be taken. R2 naturally is 12% as we have taken. R2 is 12%, R1 is 10%. NPV1, NPV2 we have. So what should we do? IRR formula we should know. NPV1 divided by NPV1 minus NPV2. So first let us calculate NPV1 minus NPV2. How much is that? NPV1 minus NPV2. 8149. That's all. Straight away IRR can be calculated in one shot. So NPV1 divided by NPV1 52,029 divided by NPV1 minus NPV2, that multiplied with R2 minus R1, that multiplied with R2 minus R1, how much here? 2. That should be added to R1, that is 10. So here around 23% we can say is the IRR. That's what I told. It is going to be very high because the positive amount difference is very small here. So that's okay, no problem. 23% is IRR for project X. NPV is around 52,030. So project X around 52,000 NPV and IRR for X around 23% or 24% as it is calculated. That's okay. Since it is a very big difference, naturally it will be less accurate. So 25% approximately it is coming there. Between 20 to 25 the IRR was there. But how do you know that 20, 25 and all that? Not required. Don't waste time on all of that. Approximately is okay, no problem. Such a big amount, such a big difference, approximate things are okay. Normally in examinations that much will not be there, because if 10% is given as the cost of capital, normally IRR will be around that only, somewhere between like 12%, 14%, like that. This is a special scenario. Fine, whatever it is, IRR is around 23% for project X. Like this, for project Y also, we can calculate where the cash flows are different. I'm just replacing the cash flows. Everything else will be changed automatically, but you have to do it again. Minus 3 lakhs, 50,000, 1 lakh, 3 lakhs. So NPV1 is 53,500. So NPV is main important for us. 53,350 it has come, approximate amounts. So for project X it is 51,000, around 52,000. Project Y it is more. So for NPV point of view, project Y is having more NPV. That looks good. If you calculate IRR for project Y, already it is calculated automatically, but you have to do it separately. It comes to around 17%. So it was earlier coming around 23-24%. Here it is 17% approximately. One thing for sure is, finally, overall position wise, project A is good in the form of when you look at IRR, but project B is good when you look at NPV. So dilemma. So conflict. Why is it happening is what we are looking at. Why is it happening? Simple logic. Same reinvestment criteria. Project X cash flows, if you observe, project X cash flows are happening when inflows naturally. More in the beginning, less in the latter part. So we can call them as the project cash flows skewed. Skewed to the beginning of the project. So more cash flows are coming in the beginning, less cash flows are coming later. That they are skewed to the beginning of the project. Whereas project Y, initially less cash flows are coming, more cash flows are coming later. So the project cash flows are skewed to the right side, means latter part of the project. If this is the life of the project, project X is having more cash flows in the beginning, and project Y is having more cash flows in the end. And because of the reinvestment assumption, naturally project X is going to have higher IRR because more amounts are there for longer time. 2 lakhs is there for 2 more years. That's a long amount, long period of time and big amount. 50,000 is only there for 2 years for project Y. And if you observe the project Y, last year's cash flow is 3 lakhs. It will not be reinvested at all. So good cash flow is coming, but that is useless because IRR assumes reinvestment happens at IRR rate. So with that assumption, the cash flows of the project, if they are more in the beginning than latter, such project will have higher IRR, and the project which will have more cash flows at the latter part of its life, that will have lesser IRR. That's it. That is the another situation where we have the comparison between NPV and IRR. That is one of the types of scenarios. And why this kind of, let us say, conflict is happening between NPV and IRR? This is time disparity in cash flows. Whether they are occurring more in the beginning or more in the end. If they are occurring more in the beginning, IRR will be more. If they are occurring more in the end, IRR will be less. But still, for the second case, NPV could be more. So there the conflict between NPV and IRR might emerge. Quite possible. That is one of the special situations that we can understand. And one more situation can be like this scenario 1, which you like scale or size disparity. IRR is a relative measure, we know that. It's a percentage thing. NPV is an absolute measure. So the scale of the project may be different, and according to that, the results can also be different. And this we already looked at as an example for the two different movies. Low budget movie with more return IRR, but still less NPV. And on the other side, high budget movies may be less in terms of percentages, but still they may have higher NPV. So look at this illustration 10. Do this one just for understanding purposes. A and B, two projects are there. Cash flows are given for year 0, 1, 2, 3. Do this. Cost of capital is 10%. You first of all calculate NPV at 10% for project A and project B. Then find out IRR also, like this. So NPV for project A is looking like 25,000 approximately. Project B is 59,000. That is the situation. You have to do these calculations. NPV for project A and project B directly. IRR you cannot calculate directly, so you have to take some additional big amount, some percentage. Since here it is taken as some 20%, etc. 20 it was not coming, so 25% was taken. Whatever it is, IRR finally has come out to be for project A 24% approximately, and project B 21.5% approximately. So once again conflict is there. Project A is having more IRR, but project B is having more NPV. A is giving a percentage return wise good, but it is not having absolute return that much good. B is giving absolute return good, percentage return is not that good. So for our understanding purposes, A is the low budget film we were talking about. B is the high budget film which gives better NPV. If you have money, go with B. As simple as that. But why we are looking at all this? There is always a possibility of conflict between IRR and NPV. One of the reasons in scenario 1 was scale of the projects. Big scale projects may have less IRR but higher NPV. Small scale projects may have higher IRR but less NPV. Of course, you should still go with NPV. Second scenario, what we already looked at is time disparity in the cash flows. The size of the projects is not that different. Both are more or less same. 2,50,000, 3 lakhs, more or less not that different. Scale is not different. But what is different here? The timing of cash flows or timing of cash inflows is different. If the cash inflows are occurring more towards the beginning of the project, initial years of the project, IRR will be more. If the cash flows are occurring more towards the end of the project, then IRR will be less. That is one more point to be noted. Of course, conflict may also arise when the lives of the projects are unequal. That is altogether a completely different topic. We will come to that unequal lives type of situation later, and also some other special cases we'll discuss in the upcoming sessions. But so far, you should be definitely able to compute the cash flows according to the information given in the question, and you should be able to compute NPV, profitability index, and IRR from the information that is given in the question. So that ability should be there, but still we have not yet reached to the 10 marks level questions. We are still looking at basic things. 5 marks type of questions were given earlier. Direct calculations, compute NPV, compute IRR, 5 marks. But bigger questions will generally have more details about building up of cash flows. Those type of questions also we will do later. Those can be dealt with different type of situations and facing more number of problems. But before that, we should be very thorough with the technique, that is computations, have to be done accurately. For that, you need a lot of practice. So you should be solving many questions about computation of NPV and computation of IRR. And we'll solve little bigger questions also, and of course go through some of the other aspects like payback period, discounted payback period, modified internal rate of return, some special cases like capital rationing. All these things can be anyway learned in the upcoming classes. But once again, I'm reiterating this: NPV, IRR are the crux of this entire chapter. We should be 100% thorough with those calculations, and we should be doing more times number of questions practice, because that will give us more accuracy in the main exam also. So that's it. With that, we can conclude the current session, and we'll discuss more aspects in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.